Hey, what's going on? It's Brian with the Blurting While Dad live stream. I'm back for another Tuesday night. Little bit of housekeeping. I didn't get a chance to finish everything I wanted to talk about last week. My outline that I created was really, really long, and I got to like one or two topics. And so I'm going to wrap up some other things that I wanted to discuss last week and talk about something I discussed on a live stream that was a little bit earlier today. And so as everybody comes in, what's going on? How you doing? Yeah, we're back. So I want to talk about some things that I talked about on the live stream. I did a live stream this morning. And the shirt's in the mail. I just got to be able to print a shirt and send it. No. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when America doesn't believe the story it tells about itself anymore. Because that's the conversation thread that I was having this morning on a different live stream. And I think it's kind of apropos to what we're kind of experiencing right now and the enshittification of America, if you will. Everybody knows, I hope everybody knows what enshittification is. It's kind of when you buy something, you buy, you get a app or something that you start liking, some kind of web app or something that helps you survive the day. Maybe it could be a gadget or something that requires updates or things along those lines. And the product or service just keeps getting shittier and shittier and shittier, but the price keeps going up. And then they start gating off and paywalling different features. That's what we're living in right now. We're kind of living in the enshittification of America. And I've had this conversation multiple times on different streams, but I always find it interesting the story that America tells about itself to itself and also tries to present to the rest of the world. So I wanted to chop that up a little bit and kind of talk about it. Revolution will be will televise, but they'll try to capitalize off of it. But that's the nature of the game, right? We talked about on another live stream. We capitalism and the way that we practice it here. It's never about like free market capitalism and we're going to all compete and all these companies compete to see who's better. Really, the capitalism that we see in the United States is more like I get in to the market, I carve out my spot in the market, I dominate the market, and then I try to keep everybody else out of the market so I don't have competition. I squeeze everybody out of the market. And that's kind of how things roll. And that's kind of the American way right now. Like I said, Walmart's not letting competition in the door, bro. Walmart doesn't want to compete with anybody. And um that's why they can price so aggressively. Um what's going on, Kenny? Kenny Grams, thanks for jumping in. It's a caste system with a few anomalies. Um, they'll use success stories against you. Yeah, and I think, but that's also kind of what the narrative is, right? We have to, human beings are really biased towards stories, and like we like stories that have complete beginning, middles, and ends. We like narratives that make sense, and so oftentimes in order to get people to invest and still believe in the artifice of this country, we got to have a narrative that goes along with it. And so that's what the success stories come in. It shows that somebody succeeded against all odds and overcame. I don't think that it is quite as elusive depending on what you know and things along those lines. But I do believe that it is rigged in a way. And like I said, it's a lot of this. Hey, how's it going? What's up, Maddie? Um, I think a lot of the stories that we tell about this country, and a lot of it is, it's designed to get people to say, well, this sucks now, but you know, every story has a happy ending, right? Like that's our narrative bias. That's how we kind of perceive it. We like stories that are logical and rational and actions have consequences and all that other stuff. And so um Coach Colin, I don't know who that is. I think, well, thanks. I think Coach Colin. Okay. I think a lot of how we communicate where we are in America. Like right now, we got the perfect example of the enshittification of America with that reflecting pool. Um, it was fine. There was really no reason to mess with it. And somebody somewhere said, you know, I need to leave my mark on that thing. And I need to be known as the one that fixed it. Now, I feel like it was probably just a scam to slide some money to somebody that was a donor or something along those lines. You know how the Washington system goes. Um, and so what they did was they took the reflecting pool, which is fine, and decided we're going to put a bunch of paint in it. And um, the paint raises the temperature, um, attracts algae blooms, and then we got to drop a bunch of chemicals in it and kill all the ducks in there. And that's kind of what happened. We had a thing that worked fine, and it was fine for years, and then somebody just had to start fiddle fucking around with it until it wasn't fine anymore. And that's kind of where we're at with it. And so I think that's where we're at in this society where um, you know, we pivoted away from this idea that people need to invent things. And we just need to iterate, and people are so obsessed with iterating on things that they'll just start messing with stuff that doesn't really need to be messed with. And so that was a good chunk of the live stream. Yeah, breaking it and profiting off of it. And here's the thing. I think when I look at what we have in office, and I really don't like to say his name too much. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. I think what we have in office, I don't like to say his name too much, but you know what I'm talking about. I I I go between. I don't think there is a plan. I think it's just due. I think we're dealing with um, a creature of just pure, as it id, where it just does shit and sees a way to pass money off to people and win interactions. And so I don't think there was ever any consideration about the how of how this was going to happen. Now, the bunker, I think that there are other hands at play, but and I don't want to minimize what we're dealing with, but I don't think we're dealing with somebody who thinks in a straight line or thinks in a cause and effect. Yeah, he's not Lord Voldemort. Hi. So I think what we're dealing with is just it's like I feel like it's chaotic evil mixed with stupid and short-sighted and money hungry. And so that's kind of what we're up against. I don't think the intent was to put algae blooms in the reflecting pool. I just think it was just shit that happened. And he does things and then there's no thought to how it impacts anybody anywhere. That's why we're in Iran right now. There's a reason why previous presidents didn't invade Iran because they can shut down the whole planet. They can shut they hold the global supply chain to oil, and the one way in shares the longest border with the country that we decided that we were going to try to bomb. And I think there wasn't a lot of forethought going into it. I still do believe that there was some other stuff that convinced him to do this thing. And I also don't think that he is against profiting off of it by manipulating the markets and saying there's a deal, there's not a deal. I think he's seeing the silver lining in ways that he can stuff money into the pockets of the people, to his friends and family and himself. Pure greed and avarice. Yeah, but we shouldn't talk about him. I do. I do, and I'm back and forth on it. He enjoys being talked about. He enjoys being talked about when he can control what's being said about it. And I've been. Here's the thing. I know that at least one when I was really in my troll stage, I know at least one of my tweets kind of penetrated the bubble and got to him because instantly I got flagged, and it was something really, really innocuous. Um, and instantly it got flagged, and I got the warning on Twitter immediately, and I didn't even really say anything that was flag worthy. So I do think that there is a level of, um, a thin skinnedness that comes along with it. He doesn't like, Kenny, chill, bro. We see you. It's negligence. I think it's being completely heedless of what consequences are, but wanting to take advantage of every um, money opportunity that the destruction creates. Kenny, you got to relax. Um, they want the left to be violent. Yeah, I do think that they we're talking about, and Maddie, did I miss one of yours? I think the they that we were talking about um, is an important factor because I I think that there's people behind him in his little cadre that are actually really good about the messaging side of things and good about manipulating social media platforms. He's probably I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that he's still in contact with like a Steve Bannon or something. Um, you know, Hi. How are you doing? I wouldn't doubt that he's still in contact with Steve Bannon, probably under the table or something. 'Cause Steve Bannon was a master at manipulating social media for was it malevolent purposes? I think that's kind of how it is. I actually have not, and the reason why I have not is I haven't had a chance to really watch anything. um, Business has picked up in a massive way, and so hopefully, when summer kind of chills out, I'll have opportunity to catch up with it. The thing is, my ADHD will not let me start a show that I don't have time to finish. Because it's a bad feeling when I'm not able to finish a show. Like I still haven't finished the season 2 of Luke Cage, and it bugs me all the time, and to the point where I don't want to go back into things, and I want to go back into it. So I want to start it when I have a chance to kind of finish it. Steve Bannon started one of the first go man, Steve Bannon is a supervillain, bro. Like he is a Bond level supervillain. Um, and I don't think that people recognize that enough. He is this odious evil presence that is out there. And well, was it William Stryker is what I could equate him to in the X-Men, where he's a violent bigot, but the only thing that he hasn't done is blown up a school bus full of mutant children. That's kind of where, but C. Bannon would if he could, if he knew he could get away with it. The messaging on the left is so bad that most people who should be most leftists are anti-left. Well, and so this kind of goes into a conversation that I've had before. We're talking about anti-blackness and the online left, because I think what we fail to understand is there's an online component of the left that is really super enamored with having the right politics to the point where they don't even allow contradiction, the normal human contradictions that exist when you actually take online politics and take them offline. And so what you have is a bunch of loudmouths who wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight talking about revolution and burning shit down. And they really don't want to burn anything down. And I've talked about it earlier. Yeah. Yeah. Steve Bannon, and I tell people all the time, Gamergate is hugely responsible for the MAGA movement, what we currently see, and there's other spin-off movements, the Comics Gate thing was there, and a couple of other things. And who really look like, well, okay, so let's go back, series ball drop on the left. We got to understand that it wasn't um working class, like the left that's actually done stuff wasn't necessarily driven or wasn't always reflected by the people in the online left who want to be the prominent figures, which is typically disaffected white dudes. And they have a hard time reconciling that historically the ones that pushed the action in real life were black and indigenous and stuff. And a lot of times white dudes did work in coalition with these other leftists, but they weren't the primary drivers of the action. And For whatever reason, a lot of dudes on the online left, they fancy themselves as these revolutionaries. Again, I talk about it. When you talk about burning shit down, talk about burning things down. This concept of burn it all down. All right, Kenny. Um, yeah. So when we talk about burn things down, um, sorry, I had to ban Kitty. Kitty was making it almost impossible for me to read comments. Um, we talk about burning things down. What happens is a lot of times a lot of leftists will fall into this, burn it all down, and so without heedless of the fact that a lot of people, as shitty as a lot of these systems are in America, um, and as exploitative as a lot of them are, people still live and depend on these things. And so if you burn them down without a strategy on how to bridge the gap, you're going to kill a lot of people. And I don't think they think that far ahead. I think they think of, we burn it all down and then magically everything gets restored and everybody's okay again. And that's not what happens. Typically, um, like regime change is a bloody affair, right? Whenever a leader gets disposed, thrown out, there's always violent rebellion, and the most vulnerable people are the ones that get hurt the most. And so a lot of times when we hear this rhetoric about burn it down and all this other stuff, they ain't really serious about being out there like that, wanting to shut everything down, because they're not willing to say, okay, we burn it all down, but what happens to the kids in the NICU, right? What happens to them? You know, burn it all down. How do we get water and electricity and stuff like that? And so it's unserious business when you hear people talk, specifically in the online left, about it. And so that's why you define them as kind of the online left. Yeah. I'm catching up, guys, on this propaganda. But they don't mean we're willing to hurt people. But well, and I don't think the people online don't know the import of what they say. Um, I come from an era. I'm a little bit older than a lot of folks on here. Um, I was born. I had a childhood where I didn't necessarily have the internet, and by the time I was a teenager, like I came of age as the internet crossed over into the mainstream, and so I live a lot of my life offline, and um, I think that there's a super online contingent. It's kind of like the super bigoted dudes that troll social media. They have all these stats and figures about black people and all this other stuff. They don't interact with people in real life, and they wouldn't say any of this stuff in real life to people. They can say it online, because in their mind, online is real life. For me, online is online life. I don't know. Elaborate a little bit. Let's have the conversation. I know a leftist want to change everything who has a degree. Right. Or urban planning. I don't, I know that people, incrementalism is a slow death, and I get it. I understand it. But we also have to be really careful with our words when we say burn the system down, burn everything down, without any kind of exit ramp for the people that are going to be most impacted by the burning of things down. And typically, a lot of these online white leftists, these, the bros, what they do is they sit online. They're going to be relatively fine, in a degree. It's going to be the marginalized people that are hurt most by burning it all down, and they don't really have necessarily a plan to rebuild anything. It's just reactive anger, and it's not effective. Like, it's how people really feel online. They're scared to say it in real life. They ban on social media. Right. Well, so like, okay, here's an example. So, there's a protest at my daughter's school, and they're protesting ICE and everything. My daughter jumped in there and participated in everything. It ended up being a walkout, but the school decided that they were going to allow the kids to do it without repercussions or whatnot. And my daughter's out there holding up a sign, and some little girl, some little rich girl standing next to her, screaming, you know, KILL Trump. And my daughter's like, you got to chill. Like, you got to chill with all that, because this isn't about the issue anymore. This is just you having a cathartic release of anger, and it's not productive to anybody or anything. And um, in fact, that's enough to have the feds knocking on your door. And interested in burning anything down. I'm interested in seizing the system and retooling. I think there's a balance to be had. And so we talk about messaging on the online left. What's happening is it's a bubble of of white dudes. It's where most of my conflicts come from, bro. It's like dudes that have never been out in the field and done any kind of activist work, never been in a protest or anything. And I'm not disclosing anything on here. Um, from what I did in my college days. But being involved in any kind of march or any kind of political action or anything, they've never been involved in any way, shape, or form of any of this stuff. It's all theoretical and romanticized in their brain about what revolution actually looks like, and they don't understand that it's typically bloody, and the most vulnerable people get hurt. That's women and children, disabled people, any kind of marginalized group or anything. The people that have the least power are the ones that get harmed the most. And they do not have the tools or equipment. Most of them do not have guns. Most of them do not know how to do anything except talk shit online. And that is the online left, this distillation of online left politics, as far as I'm concerned, when I interact with people online. They talk all this shit, but when it comes down to it, all it is a bunch of words. We need someone capable saying they don't know shit and are willing to appoint experts, but also willing to share. Well, I think here in somebody said this a long time ago, because it was a kind of a reference to what we were seeing at the top of the Democratic Party, where there was this surge of a bunch of different people of different races and ages and stuff like that, kind of gaining seats and gaining power. And somebody said, they're bad at sharing power. And that's what it was. This was when Pelosi was in charge. It's like, they're not really great at sharing power and empowering other people. But I digress. And I think you see that the online left is terrible at coalition building. They think that they're going to insult you and belittle you into agreeing with them. And that's not how things work ever at any point in time. We can have shared interests, we can have mutual interests, but at the same time, there has to be a baseline of respect. They're calling, like, I've seen them online calling people who have been out in the field, who have been activists out in the field, calling them all kinds of Zionists and all kinds of other crazy derogatory shit, and acting shocked when these people are like, well, I'm out in the field and basically, fuck you, I don't want to deal with you. And they're like, well, is this how we build coalition? You build coalition with the idea of mutual respect. We do not have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on anything. What you have to agree on is a layer of mutual respect. And that's why a lot of online, super hyper online leftists really struggle with this concept of coalition building, because a lot of the way that they interact and function is really based on picking fights and winning arguments online. And so it's really, really hyper combative. And they will talk to you crazy, but then turn around and talk about, well, we're all supposed to be on the same side. Yeah, but you ain't gonna sit up here and talk to me crazy. I find some streamers aren't even doing words. It's just provocative. Yeah. I think we're thinking about the same person. And from what I hear, that specific person is out in the field. They do a lot of work behind the scenes and stuff, but their online persona is hyper aggressive. I'm talking to somebody who comes directly from people that were revolutionaries, like who were involved in different revolutionary activities during the 60s and 70s. Family, like straight line, mom, uncles, and things along those lines. They would not put up with Hassan's mouth for 2 seconds. They'd slap the shit out of him. Because he doesn't know how to talk to people, and doesn't know how to talk to people when he gets angry. And part of coalition building is navigating differences while you're very transparent about the things that are urgent, and you're very direct about conflicts and negotiating conflicts. The idea that you're going to insult your way into a coalition is not the right way. And I see it online all the time. Grown by the libertarian social movement. Kind of explain that one a little bit. because they're so insufferable. Nobody wants to be communist. Hassan, okay. The thing I have a problem with it was Hassan is he talks to people crazy. And like I said, I come from actual revolutionaries and stuff. I'm gonna go to slap the shit out of Hassan. Even though they carried the same politics, he wouldn't have put up with his mouth for 2 seconds. Just because he doesn't know how to talk to people. And part of coalition building is knowing how to interact with other human beings in real life. Changed my mind. I mostly skip him. He does work like there. I hear people saying, FD mentioned the fact that dude's out there doing like real work behind the scenes he doesn't get credit for and stuff. He gives me the ick. And a lot of it has to do with the rage baiting online. And I've almost thrown him into the same box of the hyper leftist, the hyper rightoid, loud mouse who's sitting online and scream and stuff like that. And it's probably not a great box for him to exist in. But I feel like he's that same shit talking, white presenting dude online, you know? I think he found what works for him on stream, and that's cool. He found what works for him for his audience. But from a coalition standpoint, the people he needs to work with and try to bring over to his side are the ones that he insults the most. Again, it's like how you got more smoke for the Democrats who, yeah, they have their issues. How you got more smoke for them than the actual white nationalists that are in office? Like you got smoke for the people that you consider conservative. Like they consider most most Democrats conservative, right? And that's the line, and so that's what they're going to bang on them with. But you got more smoke for them than you got for the administration, who is literally white nationalists. And so instead of finding points of disagreement and finding points of agreement where you could work together, it's just I'm gonna sit there and scream at them until they come over and join me. And that has never been the way. If you've ever been on the playground, it doesn't work if you got one kid that's throwing sand in people's face and pissing on their shoes. It doesn't work. Why won't anybody play with me? And then he pees on your shoes. That's like that's counterintuitive. And so we're not going to go, no matter how much this kid is demanding to be engaged with, nobody on the playground wants to go hang out with him because he'll piss on your shoes and throw sand in your face. And that's kind of what we're dealing with Hassan. He understands coalition. I think he understands agreement. I think he understands agreement with him. And for a lot of people, that's coalition building, and that's not what coalition building is. Coalition building is to be able to work across differences and say, this is a part that we fundamentally disagree on, and we need to figure out how we're going to negotiate having conversations around this piece, but this can't be the piece that breaks us. And then we have to have our certified diehards, like the entire original Rainbow Coalition, right? What Fred Hampton told the Young Patriots, like, hey, man, we love working with you guys, but you guys got to ditch that conservative. You got to ditch that Confederate flag, because for us, the Confederate flag means something completely different than what it means for y'all. And there was a conversation, and the Young Patriots said, okay, we'll get rid of this because we have mutual agreement and we understand how it makes you feel. It doesn't necessarily alter the way that we perceive this thing, but because we're in coalition, we're sharing space with you. We're going to get rid of it while we do collective action. That's coalition, right? Yes, it is sports and entertainment. And I think we're leaning into the world of spectacle. That's why I don't really, again, I've mentioned it on here, dude. I don't sit here and watch the Jubilee, 20 conservatives yelling at one liberal stuff as much. I don't see that as necessarily information. I see it as kind of a diversion and entertainment. I feel like it falls in line with the balloon pop challenges and things along those lines. I don't think it's necessarily useful political discourse. It's just one intelligent person dunking on 20 uninformed people. He's trying to capture the Democratic Party because he feels like that's the best move. But here's the thing, man. This is what I'm saying. You're not going to force the Democrats out. Like you're trying to force them out of their own party and then take the vehicle and drive the car. You're doing a GTA. Like we're going to GTA the party. We're going to come and force you out of the party and drive the car. But you're going to be the passenger. We still want you to ride along. You're just going to be the passenger while we take your vehicle. And that's kind of what the goal is. But in order to do that, in order to be able to do that, it's like you probably want to come from a more collaborative approach as opposed to just hijacking the party, or go build your own thing. Start your own game. Like people get mad at the political game in this country, and I don't watch him, but from what I've heard, talking calmly, I agree for the most part. I get it, and I agree with some stuff he says, but there's a lot of shit I don't. And I think instead of going out and building their own party, you know, Democratic Socialists going out and building their own party and doing their own thing. If they want to play party politics, that's the route, and establishing it and winning local elections and building on the momentum Mamdani created and things along those lines, and trying to make it into a national movement that actually has candidates that represent school boards and election boards and all kinds of other stuff, and really building a coalition and then building a candidate through that. It's just, we're going to just try to hijack the Democratic Party, and you guys are going to get down or lay down. And that is what happened in the MAGA movement, and that shit is toxic as hell. It's feeding on itself. I don't know if you guys have read the articles. People get angry when I tell them LGBTQ is a legit political coalition in our community. Right. It's a multiracial, multicultural coalition. Like they have disagreements. There's disagreements between white LGBTQ people, like the white male gay community and other gay communities that are in marginalized groups. There's conflict. You're still dealing with racism, things like that, but there's some coalition building that happens within it. And they have massive disagreements, and that's kind of what a coalition does. What I'm saying is, I've seen the articles. They feel like they can just hijack what the Democratic Party is, and I'm not here to defend, one way or the other. But what I'm saying is, Democrats are essentially what the left aspires to be on the national political scene in terms of influence and the offices they occupy, not political standing or whatever, not political stances. And you're not going to just do what the MAGA did, where they just devour the Republican Party more or less and bully everybody else into compliance, because that's what's happening right now. This is on some mob shit. Trump sitting up there threatening people's lives and things along those lines. You read some of the independent journalism that are covering what's going on Capitol Hill, and the reason why you're not seeing so many senators speak out against some of this crazy shit that comes out of the White House is because he threatens the lives of their children and the futures of their kids, stability of their family. It's dangerous to go against him. I mean, if you're scared of people sending you death threats, I'm pretty well versed in it, but it's got to suck. And so I think that's kind of what happens. They get bullied, and they feel like the DSA feels like they could do the same thing to the Democrats. And it's like, yeah, but how do you move forward after that? Where you're just going to browbeat them into compliance? That's not how it's going to work. Now, it's one media trained person, right? He understands, and we're talking about Hassan. He understands how his media cycle works. And remember, GMP and Dems got their emails hacked. Only Democratic emails are published by Tech Press. Right. The media, the press, the mainstream press is not liberal by any stretch of the imagination. The corporate press is corporate, and corporate is right-leaning. It has been for a long time. And the coverage was disproportionate. Like I said, it was very intentful. There's a lot of intent behind what they did. But that's just my take. I think when I talk to people that are in the online left, trying to explain to them, like, if you want a party, if you want to play party politics, then you got to do this the hard way. And you can't just expect to hijack the Democratic nominee every single time. It's not going to work. There's a lot of people that no matter how You no matter what your political position is, there's a lot of older people, and I know people don't like how the older people vote, but there's a lot of people that either came of age during the Red Scare or were little kids during the Red Scare. If it says socialist on it, they will not vote for it. Doesn't matter if it benefits them or not. And that's a marketing thing, and it's not understanding messaging. And so either create a viable alternative party and build the way that every other independent party has, and build up enough coalition, or move on. But let go of this fantasy of we're going to rally all the white working class voters to the left, because white working class voters have been lost. That piece has been lost to the left and Democrats for damn near half a century, like damn near half a century. And if we're being really transparent, if we're being really, 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 really honest, we're being, I mean, if it depends on how real you want me to keep it, y'all. That part of the reason why every major leftist kind of initiative or coalition is fractured is typically the white working class selling everybody else out in the coalition. You can trace it all the way back to Reconstruction. And that has been the thorn that has destroyed any kind of leftist action that is multiracial. Any multiracial coalition on the left has been absolutely decimated by the white working class, because it's racism, and we can't address the elephant in the room. You ever called a white leftist like, hey, that's kind of racist? You get the same reaction as calling a conservative racist. Yep. Terry left. Reconstruction, even right. It is a long history of multiracial leftist causes being undermined and destroyed by the white working class. And we have to address that aspect of that feature of American history, where it undermines every bit of real progress that people try to have. You know, anything that's going to get us all the rights and make sure that all of us have a basic standard of living, it turns competitive. And as soon as competition comes out, that's when the fangs come out of the white working class. Kept my grandfather and stuff out of their unions. And basically the only job was packing house work. Like, that's a real thing that happened. You know, as everybody's unionizing up, there's plenty of black people that got pushed out that were completely excluded from unions. And that dude that was on there that was trying to fight Mark Wayne, that dude was a big racist, bro. he's a big racist, bro. And so, but he's supposed to be endemic of what we consider the white working class. And it's like, we have to address that. And I think a lot of it has to do with some soul searching, like stop idealizing this white working class dude as the ideal or the avatar of leftism in this country, because they're not. They have not been. It's a self-interested kind of thing. It's chasing the privilege. It's chasing the social advantages and privileges that the grandparents and parents enjoyed in a segregated society. You know, for a lot of people on the online left, they're anti-capitalist but not anti-racist, and that's the problem. So that's what I mean. And so I don't really mess with the labels as much, but I do have been in a lot of static with online leftists, because it's like, yeah, because the other side is trying to explain to them, I need y'all to understand that a lot of, you know, specifically, if I'm narrowly talking about black folks, from an electoral standpoint, we're the ones that kind of been voting with the moral clarity on a lot of issues, and kind of been the most pragmatic voice in the room when it comes to how we cast our vote and benefiting everybody. And at some point, you can't keep asking the people to get the least of society to keep continuing to give the most and really get nothing in exchange for it, because you know, we still live under this racialized fascism that exists in this country. And unfortunately, what happens is our needs get truncated. Our needs get thrown out for the good of the nation, and so no matter who's in office, we still end up suffering. And at some point, that 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 bill's going to come due, and you're starting to see some of the edges start getting frayed down in Texas. That's what a lot of the conversation in Texas is, bro. Like black folks are like, okay, you told us that we couldn't, that we're completely unelectable, but then, and you insulted us, because there's a lot of insults flying around in that Texas thing, from one camp to the other, and you completely disrespected and disregarded us, but now you're demanding that we get out and stump for you and vote for you and carry the water. And that's kind of been the elephant in the room. Let's make fun of you, and it's really obnoxious. Yeah. Well, but here's the other side. I think again, I've always want to pin down what the difference is. Like, where's the line between the liberal and the progressive and the leftist and everything? Because these labels just keep floating around, and then they end up getting affixed to whoever we're mad at the time. Because I can tell you who a conservative, I can tell you who a MAGA is, because MAGAs aren't even really conservatives, they're MAGAs. It's a completely different movement. It's when they let the Tea Party, when the Koch brothers decided to help create the Tea Party and let their Frankenstein monster roam across the country. And what it did was it roamed across the country and eventually came back to visit them and destroyed what they were working on, and upended everything with this what is it? This fake populist BS that is all it is just white grievance of people who have inarticulate rage because for whatever reason a black president in office broke their brain. It literally broke their brain. They could not conceptualize it. It just absolutely broke their brains. Yeah, but if you look at the like if we're talking about raw numbers, a lot of people didn't vote. But what I'm saying is, if we're looking at who voted for what, again, it was black people voting percentage wise to try to pick the thing that wasn't going to pick the side that they knew wasn't a bunch of white nationalists to a degree. Was that a large Democratic like? And the president demonstrated told this black woman to shut up and sit down in front of about 200 people. The room almost rioted, but people kind of just shut down. Right. They don't know how to react. And so this is what I said, and this is something that was said to me a long time ago. Right before 2016, I said that Democrats are bad at sharing power. The people in power are bad at sharing power. And they don't understand that they're going to have to share power with more progressive voices in the party. But then the more progressive voices in the party got to know that they're not just going to bully foot their way into the scene and force people out of the position. It's just not going to happen. They're going to dig their heel. They're going to entrench and dig their heels in, and it's going to be a fight. And instead of working collaboratively, it ends up becoming a power game up there. Like I said, you can't talk to the people that are the backbone of your party like that and sideline them because they got real grievances and concerns with how they've been treated. Because at some point you're like, okay, so y'all aren't even going to beat the racism accusations, and then you give fuel to dumb people who say, well, this Democrat over here was super racist this one time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hang out with the white nationalists over here. And you should too. So you got to share the stage. You got to pass the mic. You can't just sit up there and demand that people fall into compliance with what you're saying. And that's kind of what the Democrats do. But then also on the other side, the progressives, leftists, whatever term we're using, the ones that are the upstarts, you're not just going to come in and hijack the party. It's just not going to work. And the DNC is literally just it's just a fundraising operation at this point in time. The leadership has been flawed. They have a lot of insiders. From what I'm reading, one of the biggest flaws of it, and there are black insiders within, you know, the campaign leadership and stuff like that. 2024, Kamala Harris's campaign and things along those lines. Same thing that happened with Bernie. Black people were sounding the alarm, saying, "Hey, these are the problems here," and they got shoved aside by a bunch of the insider bros that latched onto Obama and decided that they were going to speak for all of us marginalized folk. And they don't look like us. They don't look like marginalized people, but they decided that they deigned to say that we are going to be your voice, and the rest of you need to sit down, shut up, and let us drive. And they drove that campaign right off. They drove it off of a cliff, and it's amazing that it was as close as it was, because they ignored all the voices that they needed to listen to. And a lot of it was really mercenary, because they were even saying some of those people that were working on the campaign, they didn't care about the political position. They just wanted a paycheck, and they liked the power. And some of them were former MAGA and former Trumpers. They were just looking for an opportunity, and they were given one. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were just white dudes in the Beltway. Can't even get my state party to get county. I think that's kind of what you're seeing across the board. It's the opposite reaction of what needs to happen on the Democratic side, where they need to be trying to expand who we put into positions of power and not keep drifting back towards the same voices and the same archetype of voices. Oh, the Palantir, the Peter Thiel's little list or whatnot. I did a little bit of digging into that. So, Cory Booker is Cory Booker. I've never really trusted him anyway. But like was it Joseph Gordon-Levitt was on that list, and a couple of other people, and they're trying to explain, like, yeah, man, that was like, Wes out in Maryland or whatnot. I think Maryland. He's like, yeah, that was like 10 years ago when we didn't know that Peter Thiel was a Nazi. And there was a time where we didn't know Peter Thiel was as Nazi-ish as he is. So I can kind of give a little bit of mercy for that. I don't know what Cory Booker's story is going to be. I don't know what Cory Booker's narrative is going to be. But a lot of politicians on the left and the right like proximity to power. This is what Citizens United has created in this country. Whereas access to money and power, and they will align with anybody to maintain it and get it. Right. It's like how some people were in the Epstein files, where somebody just called into the hotline and said this person was with Epstein, and the FBI said, okay, and they noted it, and then they end up in the Epstein files. That's why it does take a journalist to actually parse, or somebody who has some kind of research experience to actually parse some of these leaks and everything, because what happens is people will take the leaks and run with them as swiftly as possible without really understanding what it is. It's the same concept of like when you see like medical advancements, where they're reporting some medical advancement that happened on the news. More times than not, they're giving you early stage trials, and typically the data doesn't mean anything, but they frame it in a way like this is valuable or important or groundbreaking, and it's not any of those things. It's just somebody saw a medical thing in a medical journal that looked interesting and decided to put it on the news, but it doesn't really have any context. It doesn't really prove anything. It doesn't establish anything. The 90s are really bad about it. It's like bacon's good for you, bacon's bad for you, eggs are good for you, eggs are bad for you, milk is great for you, milk is bad for you. And a lot of it was they're taking these studies that are inconclusive and saying them like they're conclusive, and you don't have anybody on there from the research team to actually parse it and say, well, we don't really have anything yet. These are still early stages because they're being discussed or someone's friend brought it up. Correct. Working with white leftist young men and building something really strong. Okay, keep it up. Let's see what you make. Hakeem Jeffries drives me up a wall. Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries he learned, like, you got to look at who he learned from. where it's all about don't make too many waves, and rhetoric is going to win. Um, I talked about it earlier. This this fascination, the Aaron Sorkinification of politics, the West Wing wingification of modern politics, where it's all about giving the soaring speech and making the soaring stand and taking the stand and having the epic mic drop, and that's as far as it goes. We're going to win by being better people. No, we're not. You're not going to win by being the better person. When does that ever happen? But, um, you know, that's kind of what Hakeem Jeffries reminds me of. He takes stands where he can make a strong statement, but not necessarily command strong action. But at the same time, if you look at the makeup of Congress right now, the Democrats are really up against the wall. They don't really have any power at all, and there's a huge difference between when McConnell, the makeup of the House and the Senate, when McConnell was holding Obama basically hostage as a minority leader, as the minority leader. There's a structural difference between what McConnell had to ransom everybody and what Hakeem Jeffries has, and it's two different things completely. Being on the phone change minds more than text. Something Marxist doesn't think imagery. Yeah, I think the hardest part is going to be you're going to have to repackage the entire concept of Marxism and modernize it, and put it in terms that people are going to agree with. And you're going to have to move away, we're going to have to move away from citing Marx and all that, because that is instantly, it's going to provoke a reaction before you can even get the message, people to accept whatever the message is. Don't get me started on this. Hold on 1 second. If you show people things, they don't go far. Well, we believe, like, all right, when we go low, they go high. Let me get to that, Maddie. I'm gonna get to that real quick. I still get angry about it. The reason why Obama had to do that, there's a very specific reason why the Obamas have to be the absolute moderate. They got to represent the moderate, because if they did anything more extreme than that, um, they knew that the American people weren't really willing to hear it from them, and so they have to always be above the fray. Like, it's a black, like when you are the first black anything, you're carrying the weight of generations on your shoulders. And some people, for them, they have to keep up appearances. Really strong respectability politics. I don't like respectability politics, but it's the name of the game. Yeah, Obama's attack dog. That's a good way to phrase it. Let me jump back here. I'm gonna get to what you're saying. Let me jump back here. Let's see where I was. All right, so one of the things about human beings is we will, if you I've worked in group homes and stuff like that. And one of the things I used to tell my staff was, if we had a kid and we fundamentally changed the way that they understood the world, we're going to see an explosion in really, really insane assaultive behavior. When you upset somebody's fundamental understanding of the world, that has some primal things attached to it. And some people's politics are their fundamental understanding, framing of the world, and relinquishing those will be absolutely detrimental. And so, for some people, their defense mechanism is to go burrow themselves deeper in the political ideology that they believe, because if that gets upset, that's the only thing that's keeping them from absolutely just crashing out completely. Like, and I mean crashing out in the real sense of crashing out, where you do something, you flame out in a way that is detrimental to the rest of your life, where you go to jail or whatever. And so that's why some people are intractable. So even if you show them the truth, it's the allegory of the cave, right? You show them the truth, you come back and tell them what the truth is, they still won't believe you, because they have to protect their own psyche. It's a biological thing. They're protecting their own psyche at this point. And so whenever we upset a kid's fundamental understanding of how the world worked, that's when we saw the most insane behaviors. You know, show them that they can exist in a house with other people, that people actually do care about them, and there are adults that they've just met that actually are invested in their success. That was a fundamental misunderstanding some kids were walking around with, and that's when we saw the most extreme behaviors. They go high again. It that I mentioned that it's oh, I'm not talking about the Obamas doing that. I'm talking about Hillary pushing that onto the rest of the party. Right? They push respectability politics, the very specific respectability politics stand that the Obamas felt like they had to take at the convention, um, to show that they weren't the archetype of black people that are shown in the media. That was just for them, and the rest of the party took it as a call to action, and that's not really what it was. You know, you can't go high if you're playing a game with somebody and somebody says, "I'm going to cheat," and there's no rules to keep me from cheating. You can't beat that. You know, if you're playing football with somebody and they decide to bring a shotgun and nobody says, "Hey man, don't use that shotgun," you're not going to win that game. It's just not going to happen. And it doesn't matter how high you go, you're not going to prevent them from absolutely winning and taking what they want. He was, and I think the only thing I will fault Biden for, and so I've been going back and forth on this because politically I'm kind of back and forth on this one. Um, I do think that I think it was completely silly that um, looking bad on TV was the thing that made George Clooney and some of the other people that were the big donors to the party said, "Oh no, we got to get him out of here." I think it was completely silly him looking bad on TV. Um, that being said, um, I do think that um, had Kamala had a longer way to run, you know, longer, there might have been a little bit closer. I do think that they probably should audit the findings of that election because going through Starlink is crazy. Like results going through Starlink is crazy. And the fact that they didn't audit the findings of the election and double check it always blows my mind. But um I do wonder sometimes if they would have stepped out or found another candidate a little bit earlier, or if they gave Kamala a longer runway, what it would have looked like. I do think that they should have overhauled it. She should have fired the entire team, but I don't think she had time to. I might have to dub Marxist literature and make it for kids. Hey, Turning Point was doing it. PragerU was doing it. Knock yourself out. Shoot. We all joke about, yeah, Obama's anger translator. It was actually Biden. Crashing out more than January 6th. Oh yeah, we're January 6th wasn't necessarily a crash out. This was a bunch of entitled people thinking that they could do whatever they wanted to do and essentially getting away with it. This wasn't like this was just a bunch of angry people. I'm talking about where they're sitting there looking at like self-terminating and kind of stuff like that, where their fundamental understanding, they don't know how to adjust to the new world, not just lashing out. I'm talking about where it impacts them for more than one day. But I get what you're saying. They're pushing respectability politics, right? When the right wing is bearing their fans become a hyper militant, right? And you got to match the energy, bro. Like you can't just allow that to occur. Yeah, if they go low, kneecap them. I actually do. I do agree with that one. And she didn't have time to do that, right? I don't think she did. Hello, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. She had to crush 2 months in what politicians do in 10 years, and that was unfair. And she was stuck with a really shitty team. Like, I'm be honest with you, she was stuck with a terrible team of advisors and things along those lines. These are career people that were only interested in furthering their career. And yeah, and they weren't like, it was just like what you were talking about, where it was the same people that where the head of the Democratic Party told the black woman to sit down and shut up. That's the sign. Those are the kind of people that were the advisors in the Harris campaign. Yeah, and it was completely unfair. how she was put into that position. Because now you have to like you're still at the job, you're still working the job, but now we have to be critical of your boss while you're still working the job. That's crazy. Yeah, welcome aboard, Papa Skate, man. What's going on, man? So I think yeah, that's kind of where that's the I got all way off track and I did it again, damn it. So let me jump back and kind of see because I do want to talk about this stuff. Here's the thing. I don't know. I've never really done a gaming stream, y'all. So y'all got to help me out with this. Um, because I feel like I could sit there and talk about the other topics I want to talk about better on a gaming stream, as opposed to this, because this is when I want to talk hip hop and all kinds of other stuff. And um, well, it was such a mess during that time. I wish Biden dropped out earlier. Yeah, I do too. But I don't know how that would have how that would have hindsight being 2020, I don't know where that would have happened. Would it have been before the first debate? Would it have been him saying after he won the first time and saying, I'm not seeking reelection and you guys need to get a younger, stronger candidate in the door, and this is who I'm endorsing for it? I don't know. I'm looking at my default game is typically Overwatch. I just got to see how it runs on this computer down here. That's like my default game. You know, or God of War. I think I mentioned it. That's what, and see, that's my other point. I think he probably should have just stayed in and said, if we ride or die, and that's what it would have been. We ride or die, and just kind of grinned and bear it, and then if it got too serious, if he won that next one, one re-election, and then the voices get too loud, then we can have a conversation about who's going to be the interim and take over. I think that to me, and I was telling my wife, because here's the thing, I told when this all was happening and all the he should drop out, I was like, shouldn't, because this country's not gonna vote for a black woman. Told him that, and I told my wife that. We were both kind of in agreement. A lot of black people were really nervous about him dropping out because and even the it was almost felt like you had like for a lot of those same black people that had a lot of the reservations about him dropping out, they felt like they had to throw 100% support behind Harris because that was the move. But he probably should have just stayed in the race, and if he took the L, take the L and deal with all the what ifs afterwards, because dropping out with like was a 4-month window or something, like it was only a couple of months, that didn't help anybody. Yeah, that's been the issue. That has been the issue since time immemorial. Again, it's not necessarily happened. It predates the West Wing, but that's kind of what I equated to, where we have to there's got to be this high, haughty kind of standard, and the mic drops, and this highly articulate guy saying the highly articulate things and dropping the mic, and everybody goes ooh, and they're just shocked in the stunned silence, and you have these high standards for who your politicians are, but then we drop those standards whenever we feel like. Kendrick's music show thing. I'm out of the loop, I guess. I haven't even heard about it. Explain what it is. What is it? I've watched Parks and Rec. There's one episode where Leslie knocked some debate at one point, and then she was like, yeah, we'll come back next week, and next week after that, next week after that. Yeah, that's what you got to do. I agree. I don't think he after that bad debate performance, he looked bad on TV, but everybody looks bad. People look bad on TV all the time. But now you got all the people on the back end now saying, oh, we were worried about him back then. And so now we're reinforcing the narrative. And yeah, we're talking about he's old. Well, I mean, Trump's old shit. I mean, at some point you got to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, I mean, we elect old white guys to be, like, historically, they've always elected old, middle-aged and old white guys to be president. So if that's going to change, then we just got to stop putting old people on the ballot to run. Because Bernie is old too. Like all the people, all the candidates, all the male candidates were old and landowning, right? And TV show musical about a black man working at a store. Huh. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I'm gonna check that out. Right. I'm gonna have to check that out. Bernie was old 15 years ago. Right. But to joke about Biden being old, but then Trump is pretty much like not much younger than him. And now he's older than Biden was when he's in office. It's crazy work. And it was all just to be honest with you, and this is why I talk about the memification of politics. This was somebody taking a meme and creating a political stance off of a meme. Like taking a meme or a punchline and creating a political stance off of it. Doesn't really have any substance, doesn't have any real weight in the real world. But since it looked good on a meme, we're going to run with it. Biden's old, and you know, we know that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna check it out. That sounds good. I need to look it up when we get off here. They're the same age, right? He's not much like I don't think there was a much split of a difference. And you like if you've ever seen people with dementia, some people's dementia or some people's mind lapse. Biden also has a speech impediment too that he's navigating, and I guarantee you, as you get older, that might start resurfacing. And so when you're thinking and considering your words, you're a little bit more haunting in your speech and stuff like that. There's a lot of other things going on, but some people's dementia is loud, and seeing the shit that falls out of Trump's skull, where he's just rambling. You don't know what, if you ever read a transcript of some of the shit that he says, it's like, this sounds like the ravings of a madman. But people give it a pass because it's words in a sentence, where Biden's was kind of stumbling over words. His is just mouth vomit, word vomit. Yeah, I've mentioned it before. Trump wins the interaction. That's his entire gig, is trying to win the interaction. That's what he's about. He will say anything. He's ultimate salesman. He'll say anything to win the interaction. Bernie got my pen. Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, he has implants or false teeth. He has a lot. Trump got a lot going on, bro. Because the diapers thing I've been hearing for years too. If you ever see Neil Casterly, he was on The Apprentice, and he gives a lot of stuff, a lot of the stuff that used to happen on the set. And they said there was a production hand they used to call wet wipes, because that was his job. Whenever Donald would evacuate in his adult diaper, his job was to get the wet wipes and go take care of it. Boy, that's got to be something that you hate. Like, that's got to make you hate living every single day. It's got to make you just hate waking up every single morning knowing that is your job, to go wipe the rear end of this drug addict who has no control over his bowels. This C-list celebrity of the 80s and 90s, who has to wear an adult diaper, and that's what your job is. You're their production assistant. They call them wet wipe. Oh, I got it. I know. I picked up on Bernie. The American dream is dead. Yeah, and I think George Carlin said you got to be asleep to believe in it. And that's it's been true for a lot of people. And I think, again, we talk about narratives. That American dream was only for a very specific sect of people to believe in. And that was white people who were in that post-World War II era, where they had access, in public housing. When it was mostly white people in public housing, it was, it was amazing. It was great. It was seen as an economic ladder. When public housing became when they stopped segregating it and black people were in public housing, it was seen as a crutch and a negative thing. And we have to remove resources and allow it to fall apart. But when a lot of the white flight folks were living in public housing, it was seen as a way to save money and give a bridge for families to transition to that middle class and build the middle class. So yeah, but that was who the American dream was for. When they were denying black GIs their GI Bill, redlining houses and stuff, that's not, we weren't the targets of the American dream. And There's a whole lot of complex things about different racial groups in America, the model minorities and things along those lines, and how that goes into it. And that's probably a topic for another show. We can have a full blown conversation about that. It's fine when he has an issue talking, right? Yeah, much luck in South Carolina. That's and I think one of the things is that was a complete fumble because I remember even hearing black staffers from the Bernie campaign who were on the ground in South Carolina, kind of debriefing and basically saying we were sounding the alarms about what they needed to do, and the people at top were not listening. They didn't want to go out and engage the black voter in South Carolina the same way that we were telling them to the degree that they needed to be engaged. Oh, yeah, okay, I didn't know that. So there's a lot going on, and like I said, looking bad on television is the ultimate crime in this country. Oh, no, but this was okay, so this was some production assistant on The Apprentice. Like, this was some guy who just happened to get tasked with, you are the wet wipe guy, and you have to go help him clean up. Like he probably got onto it hoping that this would be his entry point into Hollywood and he was going to end up being a showrunner or something, and they handed him a pack of wet wipes and say, "Go wipe the drug addict." That's what they did. And that is um that's got to make you hate life. Like that's enough to make you say, "You know what? This dream for the television industry is not really it for me." Even if you had a ladder saying all you got to do is wipe Trump's behind for this money as a production assistant on The Apprentice, you just got to wipe his behind, and then we'll let you direct the show. It's like, you know what, this ain't worth it. The nightmares I'm gonna have. Well, okay, so we talked about this a little bit earlier. The white people in poor areas need to ally with black people in poor areas. The problem is you have to navigate the racism, and we were talking about that earlier, right? Um, Again, when we talk about multiracial coalitions, especially on the left, every multiracial coalition historically that's ever been established was unwound by racism, and that's not the black folks' fault. It was fear of competition, and it's the zero sum game. Them having some means less for us, and that was what was happening. Yeah, it sucked, man. God, man, that's like this is what your dream is. You go to film school, you learn how to work all kinds of different cameras and everything. You watch movies that you watch uh, artsy films that are supposed to teach you different camera angles and everything. You struggle, you fight, you take internships that are unpaid on sets and everything, and then you make it up, and then you're there working with the guy who Survivor guy who this is the kingmaker. He invented Survivor, and this is his new reality show. You're like, man, you call your parents and say, man, I made it. And you walk on, you show up to set for your first day ready to do the things that are going to start carving out your career in television, and they hand you a pack of wet wipes and say, go wipe him. Go wipe, go wipe, go wipe this version of Mojo from the X-Men comic book. You got to go wipe him because he can't, for whatever reason, he's done enough drugs that he cannot hold his bowels anymore. And so you have to go wipe him, and he probably stinks. And so look up Neil Casterly. It's hilarious listening to Neil Casterly talk about this stuff because he tries to really be straight faced when he's saying this, even though he's a comedian. But it is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen, and I feel bad for that guy. Like, and I don't know who this guy was, but yeah, they just named him Wet Wipes. That was his job, and you know how people are. Imagine your name gets replaced with Wet Wipes. Oh yeah, I guarantee it's not his first time initiating. They won't do it. Expects black people to be leaders. Well, here's the thing: people want the black labor of the political groundwork. They don't want black leadership, and that's time immemorial. Like I said, the people that are the people that actually have the history and the lineage of actual radical political action are going to be brown, black, brown, and indigenous people, specifically and narrowly black folks, but they don't want to share the power, and that's what the problem is. Nursing home, having to deal with talent and kind of, but working in Hollywood, it seems okay, but man, I mean, having to deal with talent having a constant issue, but working in Hollywood seems okay to me. You don't get paid that much. Specifically to be trying to live in New York on that salary, like that's got to give you nightmares. Like I bet he still has nightmares. I get that. He probably still has nightmares about it, bro. Can you imagine? Right. It's like what he signed up for. Right. He's trying to carve out a life in Manhattan, or he's somewhere in New York having to get on the commute. Maybe he lives outside, maybe he lives in Connecticut or somewhere else and has to commute 4 hours each day, and they hand him a pack of wet wipes and say, go wipe him. And if you watch, there's some videos that you can find on Twitter where Trump is, this is so bad. You can find it actually on Twitter. You can find it on TikTok. And it kind of has a Neil Casterly voiceover. And he said, you can see specifically like people standing around his desk, and he's like a toddler, like grunting and stuff. And you just lean forward and you can see people's faces just change when they smell it come out because it's awful. Look it up. I promise you, look it up. Find it on TikTok. People standing around while the president evacuates. Like, and there are dignitaries. Dignitaries, you can see their faces get sour, like, oh my God. And you know that they know that the camera's on them. They can't say anything. They can't show it on their face. The alarm of help. Something is horribly wrong here, but I can't communicate it because it's not polite to do. Imagine a white person was so pro-black, but it's like looking for a unicorn on top of it. I don't, it's not as clear cut as that. And I think that's where the uncomfortable conversations come in. You got to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, and we're not comfortable having uncomfortable conversations about it. I'm mixed race though, super white, but also technically Cherokee, right? Not everybody is cut out for leadership, right? Sometimes you do need the people that are doing the groundwork. I talked about it before. I don't know if it was on this stream where, a lot of times we get caught up in the activism side of organizing, and sometimes you need the organization piece. You need the people that actually do the groundwork and the logistics of how to get people here and what hotels or what safe houses they're going to stay in. Like there's a logistical standpoint that you need the people that actually do the organizing and do the fundraising and stuff. There are multiple apparatuses to any kind of political action or movement or whatnot, and oftentimes we only see the activists who are supposed to be the voice of it, the mouthpiece of it, and we don't really recognize the people that do all the groundwork and the skills and talents that they had and that they're bringing to the table. So if you want to laugh, like I said, and this has been a heavy episode, and again, I'm gonna have to probably jump on in game for this to talk about the other stuff. But if you want to laugh, just look up Neil Casterly. He was a writer and comedian, and he was actually on The Apprentice. And he has all these stories, but there's one on TikTok where he's kind of talking about the entire Trump diaper saga, and he's narrating it. He's talking about, the time Trump was in WWE and he tackled somebody, you could literally see his diaper bouncing up and down. There's one where I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was like Colombia or some leader from somewhere in South America that's literally sitting next to him, and you can see the alarm on his face as Trump is doing what like a toddler who's potty training is doing. We're like, And this is an octogenarian, or what is it? I think it's octogenarian, who's doing this. You can see the alarm on his face. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Give me a second. TikTok. I'll look it up. So if you guys hang out here for a second, I'll see if I can find it, and I'll drop it in the chat so you can kind of see. Hold on one second, guys. Let me mute it. All right. Neil Casserly. Hope I spelled it right. Trump. Oh, it's not Casser, it's Neil Kassler. I think that's what it is. Let me see if it's Neil Kassler. No, that's not it. It's Casserly, I think. Diaper. No, I said Neil. It's Noel. Okay, so it's Noel Casserly. So stay with me. I'll find it. I'll give you guys the link here in a second. And then after you guys watch it, I expect to have a full conversation about this. I gotta find the extended version of it though, because it's one where it's really long where he's talking about it. In age cancer offense. I'm actually in Omaha, in the blue dot in the red state. Oh, he took it private and probably got a bunch of death threats behind it. Okay, Neil Kassler. Okay, so let me take it off. Sorry, I'm getting to it. Cass. It's two S's. Nope. Kassler. All right. This has got to be it right here. Yep, this is the 2-minute one. So I'll send you guys the link. Check it out on your check it out. It's on TikTok, so that's where I found it. And he had to take his account private. I'm pretty sure that there were some threats. So if you guys could click on it and see what he's talking about, it's crazy business. When you put forward like, all right, yeah, octogenarian. I thought it was. I mean, now it's octogenarian. At the time, it was septuagenarian. But yeah. So yeah, but yeah, he has an entire talking about this entire thing, and let me see if I can kind of click him through it, because there's one where they actually did the overlays of the different politicians, and people point out like, well, why hasn't he gotten sued for defamation? Well, I mean, there's a discovery. There's a discovery sequence of discovery things that would have to happen. Defamation. I bet he's hoping to get sued for defamation for this entire diaper Donald Trump thing, because then you have discovery and then you get a chance to see if what he's saying is a real thing. And then we're gonna say, is he really wearing a diaper? And so that has to come out in court. And does he have really bad incontinence issues? And that has to come out in court. So it's funny, but it's not funny, but it's hilarious. And I think that's the only way that you're going to end up surviving this presidency. Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's not defamation. I mean, allowing someone is not defamation. But I think what they're saying, what I'm thinking is if somebody sues him for saying, yeah, he actually wears an adult diaper, and they had a guy that used to wipe him down on the set. Well, you're lying about that. I'm gonna say you're defaming me. Okay, discovery. Let's have it. Let's see what happens. Because then they got to unseal all the Mark Burnett files that he had sealed from his days at The Apprentice, and there's a lot of stuff in those Mark Burnett files. I think that's probably going to be, that would be an interesting bombshell to drop one of these days if somebody can ever hack those and see what's in those Mark Burnett files about what actually happened on The Apprentice and some of the other illegal stuff that they witnessed. That would be really interesting. I hope my bubble wand voted out. Um, I think people talking about the blue wave and we're hyper fixating on these local races and everything. I think what's going to happen is I have this fear that they're going to experience a moderate shift in who is in office in DC, and um, they're going to spend so much time trying to get on the right page that the moment will completely pass. There, a moment to take action will pass. That's what I think is going to happen. So that's what my fear is. That what's going to happen is they're going to have the blue wave. It's going to happen, and then the Dookie detector. Guys, I got another thing to post for you. um, I got another thing to. So hopefully, I'm not blasting you with sound. He awful soil himself on The Apprentice. I think that's kind of the same thing where he would have a temper tantrum and soil himself in a rage. And it's not. I don't want to make fun of older people who have incontinence issues, but if it's Trump, it's hilarious. Sorry, just because of his, in a blue wave, we're fighting the wrong group, MIO. Right. This is Donald Trump. Right. I think it's objectively hilarious that a president who is so obsessed with public image has had incontinence issues and is a known drug addict. Like this dude, snorting Sudafed and abusing Adderall for decades and decades and decades. That he's so obsessed with this image that he has of himself that being not in control of his bowels, it's just the perfect weapon to keep jabbing him with. Like I wish that they would hold up a diaper of hold up a poop emoji every single time he was out in public somewhere. I hope somebody makes a balloon when he travels over to the UK. They make a big floating balloon of a poop emoji that follows him from place to place to place to place. And I really hope that the Scottish get a hold of this because they're really good at trolling people. And so I don't necessarily feel sorry for him, especially since he's actually killing a lot of older people, this administration, through slashing their benefits and things along those lines. He gets whatever he gets. So we need to collectively fight the 1%. And I do believe that. I think that that's the pathway. The problem is, and I was mentioning this earlier today, and then I gotta get off of here. I mentioned this earlier today on another stream. One of the things is we don't get to like they've rigged the system now. Like say you decide that you're not going to pay you don't want to pay Jeff Bezos anything, and so you're going to boycott Amazon. Congratulations. Any business that you do business with that uses Amazon Web Services, which is a lot of them, you're still doing business with Jeff Bezos. If you're using any streaming service, your money's still getting funneled to Jeff Bezos. Because Amazon Web Services hosts most of these streaming platforms. They hold all the media libraries. So Netflix, you pay your Netflix bill, it's going to Jeff Bezos. You pay your Hulu bill, it's going to Jeff Bezos. Disney Plus bill, it's going to Jeff Bezos. There's no way to not pay Jeff Bezos. He's going to get your money no matter what happens. And that's the world we live in. You're gonna pay Jeff Bezos. You're gonna pay now, I guess, with Elon Musk with this tax scam that he ran down. If you have a retirement account that isn't like where you're not curating every single stock and you do growth funds or big cap funds or whatever, you're gonna give money to Elon. You're gonna give money to Jeff Bezos. Um, there's no you're going to give money to the Ellison family. No matter what you do, you have no option. We have no option. No matter where you choose to invest your money, no matter what you choose to spend your money on, and be a conscious consumer, or just really conspicuous about how you purchase and buy things, is going to people that are undermining your freedom, no matter what you do. And that's the world we live in. And so, unfortunately, the fighting the 1% is going to be a lot harder than than because there's no way to not pay them. They've rigged the system where you can't not pay them money. You can't not support them. There's no Larry Ellison, the Ellison family not only owns Oracle, pretty much every database, every software tool, everything that uses a database is if it's not an Oracle product, it's some other third party thing, but most of this stuff is Oracle, and you can't get away from Oracle. Their databases are terrible, but you cannot get away from them. It's ubiquitous. Your hospital system uses Oracle, school uses Oracle, your local government uses Oracle. All of this stuff goes through there. And so no matter what you do, no matter what you interface with, you're going to end up inadvertently supporting his product and giving him money. Any business you do any payment, any medical bill that you got to pay to the hospital system, the money goes to Oracle to pay for their software. They've rigged the system. Okay, well, let's talk about television, how we watch television. Larry Ellison's son is the president of Paramount. How many different things does Paramount own? You like Yellowstone? You know, the white Tyler Perry show, Yellowstone, and his entire universe of shows, basically the white Tyler Perry. You paying Paramount. You're watching the commercials on Paramount. You can't get away from them. Even TikTok is owned by the Ellison family. Like, they have created a world where we cannot escape giving them money. We can't get away from it. And I think that is the main issue that we're going to have to reckon with. General strike is probably the only way, but even then, where are you going to organize it? If you're using a social media platform, it's going to that same group of billionaires. Right. Bill Gates has a lot of control over the world. And it's really pathetic that he is up with Epstein, where it's like, so you have all this power in the world, but you need Jeffrey Epstein. Ugh. What kind of weird freak are you? Yeah, MSNBC, Microsoft. It used to be, I know NBC, I think that used to be it could still be General Electric's television show or television station. I think let me look it up. The General Electric still own NBC, right? Disney owns ABC. GE no longer owns. Comcast owns NBC and NBC Universal, and purchased GE stake. So now it's Comcast as the owner. And so now, if you hate Comcast, guess what? White Tyler Perry. Joke's on you. I'm not on TikTok. That's good. Here's the thing. I have to give myself a little bit of grace on some stuff. I find the fact that I can turn on TikTok and watch Australians that are visiting for the World Cup have their minds blown by squirrels. The fact that squirrels exist and yellow school buses exist, I find that hilarious. And so TikTok has me locked in on that end of it. That and Jay Peerless stuff. Like, I 100% lock in on Jay Peerless and stuff because that young man is hilarious to me. Um, it's illegal for Americans to throw a general strike. Oh, explain. Jurisdictional strikes, wildcat strikes, political strikes, secondary boycotts. It must also allow states and wow. So it's illegal for us to even have a general strike. That's crazy. How are they going to enforce that? Like seriously, how are they going to enforce it? They're going to can they arrest everybody? I don't know, but yeah, I think you billionaires are so ubiquitous to this world, and I think that was always the intent. Like they want to insinuate themselves so far into the world that you really have no choice but to ever pay them money. It's it's OCP. Like we talk about omni consumer products from the RoboCop, and that's supposed to from RoboCop, and that's supposed to be a satire, but it's the world we live in, where you have one mega corporation that controls every industry, and there's no way around not paying them. And not on TikTok, but heavy on Reddit. And now GOP is wanting to know everyone. You're right. This is not like, and these billionaires will give it to him. There's no, for a while I was like, well, Mark Cuban seems to be like, I've always had issues with Mark Cuban. It's like he doesn't seem to be too bad, and then find out there are things that he's aligning with Trump. I'm like, come on, bro! Like, what is this access? Like, you guys need to have access to him for your business ventures because he's made it so that every business venture, every merger, and everything essentially has to get his tacit approval. He has to co-sign and give the rubber stamp of approval before they will allow mergers to go through, and a lot of these things that require government oversight. And so now every single billionaire has to come and kiss this man's ass to get things, you know, and that's the game. And so that's why we're seeing all the billionaires acquiesce to him, you know. Um, Trump can make life a little bit harder on Bezos. He's not going to, you know, at the end of the day, even if Trump puts his full weight on Jeff Bezos, he may cost him maybe a thousandth of a percent of his money that comes in every single day, but that's enough for a hyper greedy person to stand up and take notice. All right, let me get through these last couple of ones. People scoring back, going those illegal tactics, right? To survive the franchise wars, all restaurants are now Taco Bell. Yeah, everything is Jeff Bezos right now. It's all Jeff Bezos. You got a favorite sport? You got to watch it on Jeff Bezos' channel. You like NBA? You like NFL? Guess what? That game's on Amazon Prime, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Deal with their weird interface. Hate that they're all assholes. Right. Seeing Damon John and some of these other guys get outed as kind of grifters is really kind of disappointing. I never liked Kevin O'Leary, so it just kind of Kevin O'Leary, so it just kind of reiterates that he's an asshole. Read up on the Taft Act. Let me look it up now because my ADHD is fixated on why it's illegal to have and how they're going to punish people for having a general strike. If like they're helping the little man out back when I was naive. Well, and there's a lot of it where it's a lot of production television magic. I'm a business owner, and so I do have an idea of how some of this stuff works. There's a lot of television magic, and the little guy a lot of times was some person that worked in corporate. They have $1 million of their own money to invest. They're not normal people. And whenever you see a lot of these companies come on, it's like, so what did you do? Well, I got tired of, going into my high paying executive job and work. It felt like it was soul crushing. And so I decided to take, do a humbly take $2 million of my own money and invest it in myself. And Mark Cuban's like, that's good. That's the American dream. That's what we want. Whose American dream is this? Who has $2 million just laying around to invest in a business venture? And I think that's where the disconnect with Shark Tank. I still watch Shark Tank, but I watch it with the knowing of what I'm getting into. About the flock cameras. Tell me more. What are the flock cameras? Yeah, Mark Cuban is the least psychopathic. Like he's the least bad of bad people. I don't trust any of them. Right. And a lot of them aren't necessarily the greatest business owners. Hi. Oh. So a lot of them aren't the best business owners anyway. And so they get up there and they talk their shit and everything and they get, get people all riled up and everything. And then they invest in these businesses and they come to find out the businesses are scams, or like Damon John, you put in bad operators to manage your assets, and they end up getting arrested and stealing people's money. Look it up. um, and I was cheering for Damon, bro. Like I was like FUBU for us by us. I wore FUBU when I was in high school. I'm aging myself. Um, but but seeing Damon John kind of fall down that path was really disheartening. Robert Herjavec getting sued for for not fulfilling his end of the stuff. So yeah, I think Mark Cuban exited because I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall for where the Shark Tank thing was going. Yeah, Shark Tank is just QVC for products. But me and my kids still get a kick out of the guy who was saying that he made these implants, like he invented these implants, like it was basically Neuralink, but they were they hadn't killed any monkeys yet with the implants. And watching Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary really get mad at this guy for saying that he invented some kind of cybernetic mental thing that you can put on your brain. It was crazy. So anyway, I gotta run. I do appreciate you guys. I'm gonna get on a gaming stream. I know I keep saying this, but I gotta get on a gaming stream so I can talk about the other stuff, because I want to talk hip hop and all kinds of other stuff that is more blurting while dad fair. But I could talk about politics all day. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. I will catch you a little bit later on this week. Talk to you later. I got a wedding this weekend, so I don't know if I'm going to be on. I'm gonna try to squeeze something in, probably maybe Thursday night. But I'll see. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.